Hey folks, George Morris here. I'm a certified scaling up coach, and I work with a variety of clients on the whole framework of scaling up and how it gets you to scale your company 10x and improve your overall functions of a company. But one of the topics that I am personally very passionate about is core values. And so I'm going to take you through this presentation. In it, you'll find some worksheets that we're going to go over on how you can set really great core values for your organization that have meaning, and also core values that you can actually build your culture on. And so I just want to kind of go over a little bit here about what core values are, and then we'll go into some examples of how to use core values in your organization. As I said, I'm a certified scaling up coach implementer. My clients range anywhere from $1 million to $130 million in annual revenue, 20 plus years an entrepreneur and former president of EO Colorado, and a father of 2 teenagers. So that's why I got the gray. But let's go into a quote here by Jim Collins. It's not the content of a company's value that correlates with performance, but the strength of conviction with which it holds those values, whatever they may be. And some of you might recognize Jim Collins. He is the author of Good to Great. He is also an international consultant, highly sought after business thinker, and he nails this. It's the strength of conviction. Let's go to some other studies here. I got 3 of them. McKinsey, they said that the pandemic has led 2/3 of employees to reflect on the work they do, with 83% saying that finding meaning in the day-to-day work was top priority for them. Nearly 3/4, or 69% of them, would even change jobs to find more fulfillment. So if your culture and the work that you're doing is not fulfilling for your employees, they're gone. The good news is they said that highly fulfilled employees plan on staying at their organization 3 years longer than unfulfilled employees. And lastly, a staggering majority, 96% of employees, believe that achieving fulfillment at work is possible. And here's where I think it's something I want to hammer home is that you don't have to be curing cancer or going to the moon to have great core values and a great culture that is fulfilling. You can do all of that by articulating core values that people really resonate with. So let's get into the importance of getting the core values right. It keeps the right employees, it gets everyone aligned in the same direction, and it defines your company against the competition. If your core values are not doing that, your core values are failing you, your core values could be wrong, which creates cynicism, apathy, leads to bad hires, misalignment, and a failure to differentiate. I love this one from Harvard Business Review. When employees sense that leaders' decisions are at odds with the company's value, they are quick to conclude that the leader is a hypocrite. I don't want to be seen as a hypocrite. I don't think you do either. So get your core values right. I love this comic, and I think it really articulates the importance of core values. The interviewer here says, "So why do you want to work for a company?" The interviewee, "Money." "Really? That's your only motivation?" "Why does your company hire people?" "Well, to make more money." Exactly. And so if you get that right, then you hire the right people. If you're all about money, then you're going to go ahead and hire people that are all about money. But we're going to do a quick exercise here for you to do when I'm going through this video. When you look at these names of the core values, I want you to say in your head, who are these companies? And we'll go with the first one here. When you see communication, respect, integrity, and excellence, what is the first company that comes to mind? I would love to play some Jeopardy music here, but I'm not going to go through the licensing rights to do that. So you get it. Let's think about that. The answer is Enron. Yes, Enron is the epitome of communication, respect, integrity, and excellence, all wrapped up in one. For those of you that are too young to know who Enron is, they were a very fraudulent organization that eventually was taken down by the US government. Integrity, boldness, teamwork, and customer service. Who do you think of? Really, integrity, boldness, customer service belongs to Kmart. Yes, Kmart is the name that you should think of when you think integrity, boldness, teamwork, and customer service. Lastly, security, trust, and innovation. This might have applied to them at one point, maybe in the 90s, but no longer would we say BlackBerry. They're still around, so good for them. But core values of security, trust, and innovation, they failed to innovate their way out of the situation they get into, and Apple and Google took their market share. when you look at core values, Booz Allen did a study and they came back to say 90% of companies have integrity as a core value. 90%. 88% have something that's a mix of customer focus or customer support, and 78% include employee focus. I'm going to call BS on this. I just feel like the majority of companies out there, they may put these things in there, but they don't practice them. They put the core values out there because they believe they should put the core values out there, not because the core values really matter to them. So therefore, they don't develop a culture that has strong core values. So how do we create core values? Every company has them. Every company has a culture. The thing is, most of the time they aren't written down. Most of the time they are organic. They're happening within the organization, and people aren't just aware of them because you don't write them down. In fact, you may have core values that you explicitly say are your core values, but there's a whole nother set of core values that are running the organization. And that's where you have a disconnect. And that's why a lot of people don't understand these really well. I'll go back to a value here from Tony Hsieh. So he was the founder of Zappos. He committed suicide a few years ago. And this was a guy who was really, his ultimate core value was happiness, seeking happiness. And if you read the books that he published around this, he was drilling all of his core values, distilling them down to happiness. That's what mattered to him. I think in the end, maybe he wasn't happy truly. But if he says here, if I could go back and do Zappos all over again, I would actually come up with our core values from day one. He built an amazing company, sold it to Amazon, did a terrific job, and he came back to say he would create core values on day one. So I'm going to go through and list out what I see as 3 different types of core values. There is the organic core value, which is the core value that is what you're showing by what you're doing within your organization. On the other side of this is your aspirational core value. These are the core values in which you're trying to aspire to, and maybe you only have a few people that exhibit this core value, this actual value. And so what we want to do is we want to take from the organic and we want to take from the aspirational, and we're going to make a list of core values. So what I recommend you doing is taking a piece of paper and on the left side, write down your organic, the right side, write down your aspirational, take some time, list it out, create as many as you want. And I would actually urge you to think about the organic by saying, what would you do in case you had to fire somebody? What thing would they do wrong in your organization for you to fire them? And that's telling you something about the way that you value your organization. What do you routinely hear from your customers? What are the commonalities of your top 3 to 4 employees or 3 to 5 employees? So think about that. Pause the video, take as long as you want, and try to write down at least 10 core values that come up that are organic core values, things that you're just showing within your organization. So write them down. When you're thinking about it, think of the things that maybe even are unflattering, right? So if you feel like your company does it good enough instead of great, write it down. If you feel like you rush through things and you have a core value of time is of the essence and you want to move quick, write that down, right? So be really clear about the core value that you're clarifying here. Next step is on the right side of the paper. I want you to write your aspirational core values. So in this case, you want to list up, I say 5 of the company values. Maybe if you can come up with more, great. If you have a BHAG or an audacious goal that you want to reach, what are the values you need in your organization that maybe you don't have yet, or you have few of, that you want the rest of the organization to aspire to? These are your aspirational core values. So let me give you an example, and choose them wisely. If I have a company that I work weekends, I encourage the employees to be at the office early in the morning, I encourage them to be here late at night, then I have a high core value when it comes to being in the office and working hard, working long hours. Maybe my name's Elon Musk, for instance, and I want you sleeping in the Twitter hotel to make sure that you're working hard. I would not pick a core value that says work-life balance. It would be totally inauthentic. And if we were to aspire to that, it would drastically change the culture And unless I intentionally want to do that, I'm going to be really careful with choosing that as a core value. So again, pause, write down your aspirational values. And what I would say you need to do next is pull them into your core. Figure about 12 of the values. I want you to pull your favorites from your organic, pull a few of them from the aspirational, and make a list of 12 core values. And if you get inspired to add a new one that's not on either one of those lists, great, just throw it on there. But I want you to have a list of 12. You can go as high as maybe 20. I would say low as maybe 8, but create a set of core values that's kind of in that Goldilocks range. And then once you've done that, the next step is I want you to go ahead on a whiteboard, and I want you to draw out 2 axes. I want you to have an emotional axis and an authenticity axis. On the ends of both axes, I want you to score at 10. At the center point there, I want you to go ahead and set it at 0. And then draw your quadrants out. So when you do that, I want you to put Post-its for each of the, say you have 12 core values you've settled on, or at least you think are really strong core values. I want you to go ahead and put them on Post-it notes and then stick them up on this board on the emotional resonance of it. How much does it emotionally hit you? And the authenticity. How authentic is it to say that you have these core values? So write them all out, go up on your whiteboard, plot them where you want. Now, after you've plotted them, and if you're doing this video alone, you're only going to have your own whiteboard to work with, and you're not going to have anybody there moving them around for you. But if you have a team, I would encourage you to have your team move them around and let them do that for a couple of days. When they have done that, then look at the top right corner here. This is the set of core values that are your real core values. I would say no more than 5, no less than 3. And there is scientific backing to say staying within that range, 3 to 5 core values, has a highest success rate. When you have too few core values, you don't have enough to discuss behavior on or build a culture on. When you have too many core values, you can't remember them. There's too many core values. Your team's not going to keep them on the top of mind. They can't live with them on a daily basis and say, this is my core value of be the change. No, they can't do that. They don't remember them all. Unless you have an extraordinary organization, stick with 3 or 5 core values. So when you've had those core values listed, the next thing I'd like you to do is ask your team or ask yourself the question, what does this value mean to us? What does it look like when we put this value in action, and how might it be misinterpreted? So an example of misinterpretation would be if I have an Elon Musk-like culture and I want to have a work-life balance, then using that core value might create the wrong impression for the organization. I'm going to be saying, I want you here working late nights and extreme hours, but now I have a core value that's work-life balance. There's no match there. So ask these 3 questions and ask them of the team, then let them marinate. And by marinate, what I mean is put them up on the board, ask the questions, and then have your team get another set of Post-its, a different color, and write questions on them. And have them clarify your core values. If your team comes back and says, what the hell does this core value mean? Create a discussion, talk about it. What we're doing here is we're building a culture, and in any culture, language is the most important thing. It's the glue that binds the culture together. So if you don't have a common language by which you're working on, you don't have a culture. I'll just tell you, you don't. Debate that with me. I'm happy to. So filter it down to your top 5 core values. And then what I want you to do is I want you to get real with your core values. And by real, that means building core values that are relevant, emotionally engaging, authentic, and livable. Let me talk about that a little bit more. A relevant core value. So you can look at this core value and say, yes, this applies to our organization or who we want to be, and we can get there with that core value. Is it emotionally engaging? Do you feel like when you read the core value, you're like, yeah, I feel that right here. That's what matters. If you have a core value that is customer focus, yeah, it doesn't really resonate. It just, I'm sorry, there's no emotion to that. Or if you have a core value that says, we will knock down walls and kill for our customers, that has some other emotional relevance to it. More emotionally engage it. Is it authentic? Can you live it on the day in and day out? And can you point to it actually being lived? And the livable here is kind of along the authentic, like it's true to the organization and you're actually showing that you're living it. So one of my favorite examples is Atlassian, software company down in Australia. Their core values, they have 5, and I love them. Open company, no BS. Build with heart and balance. Don't F the customer. Play as a team. Be the change you seek. Check, 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 check. All 4 relevant, emotionally engaging, authentic, livable. All applies here. And what I did there is I created a graph. And this is an example with HubSpot. Go through, list your core values that you have, and then create this grid. Actually, I have a worksheet I'll show you here in just a second that you can download. And then write your core value out and then check it. Is it relevant, emotionally engaging, authentic, and livable? If it is, you have a strong set of core values. If only 1 or 2 of those boxes are checked, like in this case, we lean towards long-term impact. Okay, I think it's probably authentic. It's probably livable. Now, I don't work at HubSpot. I don't know anybody that does, but I don't think this one is emotionally engaging. And you can rewrite this. You can still keep the spirit and rewrite this so that it was emotionally engaging. So this one here, we work to be remarkably transparent. To me, that has a higher degree of emotional engagement. To you, it may not. So just go through and do this exercise. It is a little soft. It is a little fuzzy, but doing this will help you gain clarity. I also have another worksheet here. I'll show you here to kind of go over how that might look. So if you want to do the column approach that I went with you have organic, aspirational, and core, that's one way. The other way is this worksheet here. This is my core values worksheet. It's just stepping you through the process in a 6-step process. What does the world say about you? What are phrases you use? What are examples, etc.? And then you go over and you kind of move through this and you get to the value analyzer, which is right here, where you write down your value, you write down the example, and then you check the boxes. So that's one alternative. And again, you can just go ahead and use that QR code or follow the links on the bottom of this video, and you can go to that worksheet and download it and put it to use. So what do we use them for? We got the core values, we've distilled them. Again, they're the building blocks. They create the culture within the company. It filters out your wrong hires. It lets you talk to the ones that you have hired that are no longer a cultural fit. And it lets you point to the core values to say, you know what? You don't live this core value. You don't live that core value. Maybe you'd be happier at another organization. So there's the door, and you can go ahead and walk out that door because you'll be happier somewhere else. We're going to be happier as well. Thoughtful, well-implemented values can serve as the foundation for a positive high-performance culture. And when I say high-performance culture, I'm talking about the 5 dysfunctions of a team. It's a book by Patrick Lencioni, and he says core values are the deeply ingrained principles that guide all of a company's actions. They serve as its cultural cornerstones. Spot on. Patrick Lencioni nailed it. And the first thing that he says teams have to work on is trust. You get to trust by having a clear set of core values that you think about, you act on, and you hold each other accountable to. I'm going to give an example here of a company that is really doing a great job at indoctrinating their core values by doing these activities. So each day, Citybin, I think they're out of Wales, they're the waste disposal company. They go through and they list out what is cool and not cool. And these are actions that follow their core values. So in this case, like the 17th of the month, they have haul or call, cool, right? Not cool, long call waiting times. Got it, really clear. So when they emphasize the actions that lead to the core values, then you start to create this way of working, this way of thinking that really can change an organization. An employee who knows and understands their corporate values is 51 times more likely to be fully engaged at work. There you have your fulfillment. Harvard Business Review. There you go. There's lots of proof. Don't just take my word for it. You can also use these for quarterly conversations. Again, I have another template for you here. You can go to the website, scan the QR code, or follow the links in the bottom. But the quarterly conversations look like this. These are 4 of my core values. What I would do is I would sit down with an employee. So say I'm sitting down with an employee named Jill. I'm going to say to Jill, Uh, Maybe here I am in Q3 and I'm reviewing her and I'm going to say, hey, Jill, I haven't seen any examples where you're having fun here with the team, with the customer. So I'm going to give you a negative. I just don't see it's working out for you. You're not showing a lot of fun. But question defaults, own it, be the change. You're crushing it. And here's examples I can point to where you're crushing it. Now, if I'm doing this review with an employee and then we get to a quarter where they're like negative, 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 and more than half of the core values are not being met, that's a bit of a flag, but I'm going to let that go. And I'm going to do this for 3 quarters. So Q4 comes around, maybe they make a little bit improvement. Next year rolls around, we're in Q1 again. They're all negative again. I'm going to start having a conversation. After 3 consecutive negatives, I'm really going to wonder if that person's the right fit for my organization. And they should see that too. They should see, like, if I can't live these core values, am I really fulfilled here? Am I really giving back to the team? Again, you can download that and also has some KPIs you can use for a quarterly conversation. Going back to Patrick Lencioni, and I think this is a great way to sum it up. If you're not willing to accept the pain real core values incur, don't bother going to the trouble of formulating values. Bottom line, if you're not willing to have a conversation with your team and fire people on your core values, then they really don't matter. There's better things for you to go work on if you're not going to actually follow through and do this. However, I would say, and scaling up would back this up, is that if you live your core values and you hire and fire based on them, and you have discussions about them on a regular basis, you will start to create a high performance culture. It'll take time, but you'll get there. And lastly, I'll leave you with mine. These are the examples of my core values that really matter to me with my organization. My personal core values are derived from these since it is my company, but it's not always a perfect match. And I suggest that as I grow my practice, my core values may change a little bit as I grow, as my team grows, etc. Thank you for taking the time to go ahead and do this video with me. And if you have any feedback, just go to my website. I would love to get feedback from people on how I can make this better, what things I didn't answer that you would love to know. And if you want to reach out, go ahead and reach out. I'm happy to talk to anybody 15, 30 minutes and just kind of see where you're at. So thank you once again. I look forward to putting another video out here that might be helpful for you. And I hope you have a great day. And I'd love to hear back from you if you're willing to do that. Thank you.